Hello everyone. Today we are going to start lecture 03 of class 8 mathematics chapter number 10, which is visualizing solid shapes. Now in this lecture we are going to talk about pyramids. You must have seen pyramids of Giza which are in Egypt, either in movies or in pictures. You must have also seen that in gift shops we have various gifts in the form of pyramids which are made up basically of glass. You must have seen various artifacts in the form of pyramids. But let me ask you, are the pyramids which we have seen in Egypt are the only type of pyramids, or do we have different kinds of pyramids as we have different kinds of prism, right? So we shall answer this particular question in this lecture by defining what are the different types of pyramids. But for defining them, let us first define what a general pyramid looks like and what is that particular factor on which we are dividing different kinds of pyramids. Okay, so if I start with the definition of pyramid, then a pyramid is a polyhedron. A pyramid is a polyhedron whose base is a polygon of any number of sides and whose other faces are triangles. With a common vertex. So a pyramid is a polyhedron whose base is a polygon of any number of sides and whose other faces are triangles with a common vertex. Clearly, a pyramid is basically something whose faces meet up at a particular point, unlike the prism whose edges meet at a particular point. Okay, so you can clearly see that in a pyramid, there are triangles which are actually built up over the base, over the sides of base, and those triangles are meeting at a particular point, which is called a common vertex. Okay, if I have to write this particular thing in other words, it is very easy. Okay, so if I have to rephrase the definition, then I can write if all corners of a polygon are joined to a point, not lying in its plane, we get a pyramid. Basically, this definition says that suppose you have square, right, like this, and you have a particular point here which is not in the plane. So if you connect all the vertices to this particular point, then this resulting figure would be a 3D figure obviously, and this resulting figure would be a pyramid. Okay, let me show you how an actual pyramid looks like. Now these are pyramids. Obviously one of them is a right pyramid, second is the oblique pyramid. We are going to define them, but for the time being, in both of the cases you can clearly see we have a base which is a square, and there is a point in the air which is not in the plane of the square, and we are connecting all the four corners of the square with this particular point, and this particular point is being called common vertex, right? Here also it will be vertex. So this pyramid is called regular pyramid, or you can say it is not regular, it is right pyramid. Okay, not regular, it is right. Why right? Because it is right angle. We are going to define it. And this is oblique pyramid. Okay. Now in both the pyramids or both the types of pyramids, you can see they are one and the same with the intent of seeing them with the definition. Okay. So if you see them through the definition point of view, they both are same. Yes, there is something extra in right pyramid. Okay. But you can clearly see that both of them have the face of a square, base of a square, and both of them has a point in the air which is not actually in the plane of the square, and if we connect them, we are getting a figure like this, which is raised and whose faces are triangular and the base is square. Okay, now this is the kind of pyramid you must have seen in the pictures where the pyramids of Egypt, right? But we also have other kind of pyramids, and this base which is square is the factor on which we define different kinds of pyramids. Okay, so let us move on defining what is a vertex, height and axis of a pyramid. So let us talk about what is a vertex, what is height and what is axis of a pyramid. Okay, so what is vertex? The common vertex of the triangular faces of a pyramid is called the vertex of the pyramid. Right. So the common vertex of the triangular faces of a pyramid is called the vertex of the pyramid. Similarly, what is height? The height of a pyramid is the length of the perpendicular from the vertex to the base. So if you drop the perpendicular from the vertex, now we have already defined what is vertex, then that particular length of the perpendicular would be the height of the pyramid. So what is the axis? The axis of a pyramid is the straight line. The axis of a pyramid is the straight line joining the vertex to the central point, or you can say center of the base, right? Central point of the base, or you can say center of the base, right? So what is axis? Axis is a straight line joining the vertex to the central point. Now let us see all of these three things, that is vertex, height and axis, with the help of figure. Now obviously we are going to talk about both the pyramids, right pyramid and an oblique pyramid. So you can clearly see in this particular figure, this particular point is the point A is the vertex, and this be the center. Okay, so here this AO is basically axis. Okay, and if O is the center, because I'm assuming the base to be square, so if the base is square, then the center would be the same. So AO would be height and AO would be the axis. So this would only be the axis, right? So this would be axis and this would be height, and this would be vertex. But if you see in this oblique figure, then you will find that the axis is inclined. Okay, height is the perpendicular, so see, you can see height is actually outside the figure, and this would be the height. This would be height of the prism. Now this particular corner point would be the vertex, let it be P. Okay, now if I try to join this P with the central point on the base, then this particular line would be axis. Okay, so you can clearly see axis is perpendicular in the case of right pyramid, and in the case of this oblique pyramid, the axis is inclined. Okay, height is obviously a perpendicular drawn from the vertex to the base. So these were the vertex, height and axis for both regular and oblique. Let me write it. This is the regular, or you can say not regular, it is right. Both right, regular is a different thing. Okay, right pyramid, and similarly we have here oblique pyramid. This is oblique pyramid. Okay, so let us move on. This is oblique pyramid. Let us move on to lateral edges and lateral faces, like as we have talked in the prism. So let us first define what is a lateral edge, and then we'll talk about lateral face. So the edges through the vertex of a pyramid are known as its lateral edges. Okay, we are going to see it in with the help of figure, but first let us define what is lateral face. Okay, so the side faces of a pyramid, are known as its lateral faces. Right, the side faces of a pyramid are known as its lateral faces. Now if you see clearly, then the side faces are nothing but triangles. Right, so the side faces of a pyramid are actually its lateral faces. So you can clearly see that they are nothing but triangles. Now how many triangles? So we can write if the base of a pyramid, this is an important relation in terms of questions, if the base of a pyramid is a polygon of n sides, obviously it will be a polygon, but if it is a polygon of n sides, then it has n lateral faces. Obviously every side of the polygon will contribute one triangle, right? So there will be n sides, so n triangles, so n lateral faces, each one of which is a triangle and 2n edges, right? So if the base of a pyramid is a polygon of n side, then it has n lateral faces and 2n edges. Okay, 2n edges, and lateral face and 2n edge. So let me show you. If we take this as a pyramid, obviously this is an oblique pyramid, so it is a general example. You can clearly see that this face triangle, if I give it name OAB, then clearly see this OAB, this face is a lateral face which is triangle. Similarly OBC is also a lateral face, OCD is also a lateral face, and OCE, and similarly OCF. You can clearly see this is an hexagonal pyramid. Okay, you can see AF, FE, ED, DC, BC and EB. There are 6 sides. So you can see the base of the pyramid is a polygon which is basically a hexagon, and it has 6 sides. So see, it is contributing 6 lateral faces and obviously 12 lateral edges. These lines, that is OD, OE, and line passing through the vertex basically, or line joining the vertex to the vertices of the base. These are the lateral edges. So there are 12 lateral edges, 6 base edges. These are base edge, right? So you can clearly see that these are the specifications of a hexagonal pyramid. Okay, now let us move on in defining that what is a right pyramid. As we have studied in the starting of the lecture, that right pyramid is actually upright, or you can say whose axis is kind of perpendicular to the base. So that is the only definition we can write. A pyramid is said to be a right pyramid if the perpendicular dropped from the vertex on the base meets the base at its center, right? So a pyramid is said to be right if its perpendicular drop from the vertex of the base meets at the center. But if you recall, the line joining the vertex and the center is called axis. So basically, if axis is perpendicular, then the pyramid is right pyramid. Okay, so you can recall that I've already told you when I was talking about axis. Okay, so this is the perpendicular. Or also, if it does not happen, then you can clearly see that the pyramid would be oblique. So you can also write that otherwise the pyramid is called an oblique pyramid. Okay, so clearly if you draw perpendicular from base to the vertex, then obviously this if you draw the perpendicular from the center, that is basically center of base, then it should meet at the vertex. That is what we mean by the right pyramid. Okay, so let me show you what a right pyramid looks like. We have already seen what a right pyramid looks like, but this figure actually explains that if O is the vertex and if A is the center, then you can clearly see that OA is perpendicular to this particular face. Let me name it B, C, D and E. So this figure is basically explaining that this OA is the axis, or you can call it height. So this is basically perpendicular to the base, and that is why this pyramid OBCDE will be called as right pyramid. Okay, let us move on to the regular pyramid. So now what is regular pyramid? So it is, as the name suggests, a pyramid is said to be regular if its base is basically a regular polygon. So we can write that a pyramid is said to be a regular pyramid if its base, a pyramid is said to be a regular pyramid if its base is a regular figure, right? So you can clearly see what is a regular figure, basically regular polygon. So you can say if its base is a regular polygon, right? Or you can say that is all of the sides of the base are equal. So that is what we say to be a regular pyramid. Okay, now obviously this regular pyramid has nothing to do with the lateral sides. The lateral side will still be triangles, but the only thing is that the base is regular. Okay, if we talk about its lateral sides, See, this was all about base. Okay, if we talk about lateral side, they do have one particular thing, that all the lateral faces are basically congruent triangles. Okay, we are not talking that they are regular or not, but they are congruent. So let us write that in a right regular. Okay, you can clearly see not only regular, right regular. Okay, pyramid can be regular, but it should also be right. Okay, so both. In a right regular pyramid, see, this condition is very important, so let me underline it. In a right regular, you should always remember this particular condition, that in right regular pyramid, the lateral edges are equal and the lateral faces are congruent triangles. Right. So you can clearly see in a right regular pyramid, the lateral edges are equal and the lateral faces are congruent triangles. And this is a very important property in terms of questions. Okay. Many times MCQs have been asked on this particular property. So if you have a right regular pyramid, you can be very sure that your lateral edges will all be equal in length and the triangles would be congruent. Okay, they may not be regular, but they will be congruent. Okay. Now let us talk about some specific type of pyramids. The first one is a triangular pyramid. Okay, but before being a triangular pyramid, let me recall that, see, if this is a regular pyramid, then the only thing you should have to see is the base. Now there is a square. This is a square. Since it is a square, you can clearly see that all the sides would be equal. Clear? So that is the definition of regular pyramid, because every angle of a square is a 90 degree. Now let us talk about the first type of pyramid, that is triangular pyramid. Now see, if you see this regular pyramid, what will be its name? Okay, it is a pyramid, but which kind of pyramid? So you will say, sir, we have to find something unique in every pyramid, some factor through which we can call it a different name. So you will see that, see, every pyramid has a triangle. Now you will notice that, see, there is a base. You can change the bases. On the basis of this particular shape of the base, you can name the pyramid. So that is how we are defining the first pyramid, which is triangular pyramid. Now what is a triangular pyramid? So you can write a pyramid whose base is a triangle. So you can clearly see on the basis of base, that is shape. What is the shape of the base? So a pyramid whose base is a triangle is called a triangular pyramid. Pyramid whose base is a triangle is called a triangular pyramid. So you can clearly see that if we make a base as triangle, then there will be three sides on the base, and similarly there would be three sides which will be connected from corners of this base to the vertex. So there will be total 6 edges. So the number of edges would be 6 because 3 would be the sides of the triangle, these would be edges, and 3 would be the lateral edges. Now what would be the number of faces? Obviously 1 would be the base and 3 would be the lateral. So there will be number of 4 faces. 1 would be base and 3 would be lateral. Similarly, what are the number of vertices? If we talk about vertices, it will always have 4 vertices, because 3 would be in the base of the vertices of the triangle, and the 4th one would be the common vertex. So there would be 4 vertices. Let me show you how a triangular pyramid actually looks like. So a triangular pyramids look like this. If I name them OA, BC, then see, ABC is the base, OAB, OBC and OAC, these are the 3 lateral surfaces. Also, a triangular pyramid is also known by the name as tetrahedron. It looks like this. If you see it in 3D, this figure is called triangular prism, and you can also call it tetrahedron. Okay, or you can call it tetrahedron. Why tetrahedron? Because tetra means 4 and hedron means face. If I have to write the meaning, then I can write tetra means 4 and hedron means face. So a figure having 4 triangular faces is basically called triangular pyramid. Okay, or you can also name it tetrahedron. So this is how a triangular pyramids look like, and this ABC would be the base. We have already discussed what are height, what is axis. Okay, so let us move on to the second type of pyramid, which is actually rectangular pyramid. Now obviously you can very well imagine that what is a rectangular pyramid. So a pyramid whose base is rectangle. A pyramid whose base is rectangle is called rectangular pyramid. Obviously, rectangular pyramid will have rectangular base only. Similarly, triangular pyramid had triangular base. Now, the what is more important than this particular thing, because it is very easy, is the number of vertices, number of edges, and number of faces. Number of vertices, number of edges, and number of faces. Now, how many number of vertices would be there? See, in a rectangle there are 4 vertices, right? So the 4 vertices would be in the base, and the fifth one will be the common vertex. Fifth one will be the common vertex. So there will be 5 vertices. Okay. If we talk about edges, then obviously 4 edges would be in the base for the rectangle, and the 4 edges would be connected by the 4 corners to the vertex. So there will be total number of 8 edges. Now if you have to talk about faces, then the number of faces would be the first one would be the rectangle, which is base, and 4 will be the triangle. So there will be total 5 faces, in which one is base, which is rectangle, and the 4 are lateral faces. Lateral faces here are triangles. Okay, so let me show you how a rectangular pyramid actually looks like. So a rectangular pyramid looks like this, in which if I have to name them, then O, A, B, C, D. So you can clearly see that ABCD is basically a rectangle. This is a rectangle, right? And this O would be the common vertex, and this you can clearly count it OA, OB, OC, and OD. These are the 4 vertices, 4 edges, lateral edges. Similarly, AB, AD, DC, and BC are 4 sides, so total 8 edges. Similarly, O, A, B, C, and D, there are 5 vertices. And if you talk about faces, then ABCD would be the base, the first face. And similarly, there are 4 faces laterally, which are all triangles. For example, OBC, OCD, OAD, and OAB. Right? So this was rectangular pyramid. Now let us talk about square pyramid. Now, what is a square pyramid? As the name suggests, a pyramid, as the name suggests, a pyramid whose base is a square is called a pyramid whose base is a square is called a square pyramid, right? So a pyramid whose base is a square is called square pyramid. Now if we talk about again the number of edges, then square pyramid would be similar to rectangular pyramids in terms of these things. So number of edges would be same, which would be 8. Similarly, if I talk about number of vertices, they would also be 5. Okay, 4 at the base and 1 will be the common vertex. And if I have to talk about number of faces, the number of faces would also be 5, in which the first one would be the base and 4 would be the lateral faces. Right. So they would be number of edges, number of vertices and number of faces. Simple. Let me show you how a square pyramid actually looks like. So it looks like this, in which these bases are squares. Okay, if I name it, then it will be O, A, B, C and D. This ABCD would be a square, and similarly O, AD, O, CD, OBC and OAB. These are 4 triangles, right? So you can clearly see this is a square pyramid in which the base ABCD, and here also this base would be the square, and all the 4 lateral surfaces are basically triangles. You can also see that square is basically a regular figure. Okay, it is a regular polygon. So what am I trying to say is over here is that since square is a regular figure, and I already told you that regular pyramid is basically a pyramid in which all the triangles are congruent in a right regular. Obviously it is a right pyramid, so if it is regular because the base is square, this triangle OAD and OAB, OBC and ODC, all 4 triangles are congruent over here. Okay, they are not of different angles or different things, they will be congruent. So that is basically the power of right regular pyramid. Basically what you have to study is right regular pyramid, and let me tell you that the pyramids you mostly see in gift shops are also right regular, and they are basically square pyramids because they are more famous, although you will also see rectangle pyramids also in the gift shops, but most of the times the shape which is famous is square pyramid. Many people think that these are the only type of pyramids, but now you know that we have 3 different kinds of pyramids on the basis of base. Triangular pyramid, second the rectangular pyramid, and then the square pyramid. Similarly, let us define the next type of pyramid, which is pentagonal pyramid. Again, as the name suggests, what is a pentagonal pyramid? A pyramid whose base is a pentagon is called pentagonal pyramid. A pyramid whose base is a pentagon is called a pentagonal pyramid. Now let us talk about the edges, number of vertices and all of that. So clearly let us first talk about number of faces. Now it is a pentagon, right? So pentagon would be the base. Similarly, pentagon has 5 sides. So these 5 sides will contribute 5 triangular faces. So there will be 5 plus, and that is 6 faces, in which one is the base, which is pentagon, and the 5 are lateral, which are actually a triangle. Okay. What are the number of edges over here? If you see, a pentagon has 5 sides, so 5 edges on the base. Similarly, 5 sides would contribute 5 corners, so 5 corners would be connected to the common vertex with the 5 different sides. So 5 plus 5, there would be 10 edges. Similarly, if we have to talk about number of vertices, and it is pretty simple. There are 5 vertices because there are 5 corners in pentagon, so there are 5 vertices on the base, and the 1 would be the common vertex. So it will have total 6 vertices. So you can clearly see it has 6 faces, 6 vertices and 10 edges. Okay, so let me show you how a pentagonal pyramids actually look. So pentagon pyramid looks like this. If I name them, then it would be O, A, B, C, D and E. Okay, this A, B, C, D, E, you can clearly see that it is a pentagon, and this O, B, C and O, D, C, these are all lateral faces which are actually triangular. Okay, so this is a pentagon, right? And in both the cases you can clearly see there are 5 triangular faces, 1 common vertex and all the other things. Now if you count the number of vertices, there are A, B, C, D, E, 5 on the base, 1 on the bottom. If you count the edges, there would be 10, right? So this was all about pentagonal pyramid. Okay. Many of you have not seen pentagonal pyramid because pentagonal pyramids are very less used. Generally, the square and rectangular pyramids are something which you have seen even in the gift shops, right? Let us move on to the last type of pyramid, which is regular octahedron. Now this is basically a combination of two square pyramids. Okay, if I have to write its definition, or if I have to define them, then it is actually it is a combination. What regular octahedron is a combination. It is a combination of two square pyramids whose faces are equilateral it is a combination of two square pyramids whose faces are equilateral triangle. It is a combination of two square pyramids whose faces are equilateral triangle. Now if I have to show you, if I have to make it, then it is just like that we actually join the squares like this. Similarly, this is the common vertex, so this must be the top, the first square pyramid, and the second square pyramid is basically below it. Okay, so if we have to recall, then this is the okay, so this type of figure in which on the top also there is a square pyramid, and on the bottom is also the square pyramid. This is something called regular octahedron. Why octahedron? Because it will have 8 total faces. Okay, so let us talk about them. So if we see number of vertices over here, if you see number of vertices, then how many number of vertices are there? So we can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So there were total 6 vertices. Do you know how? 4 will be on this common base, okay, and 1 on the top and 1 at the bottom. So there would be number of vertices, which is 6. What are the number of faces? Pretty simple. You can clearly see that base has been covered by another base. So there are 4 surfaces on the top and 4 triangular surfaces on the bottom. So there will be total 8 faces. And if we have to talk about edges, number of edges, then obviously 4 edges would be basically the sides of this square. Then 4 edges would be at the top and 4 at the bottom. So we will have total 12 edges. Okay, so this was all about regular octahedron. It is just a figure which is a combination of two square pyramids. Let me show you how it actually looks like. It actually looks like this. You can clearly see, if you see A, B, C and D. This is a square base on which we have based a octahedron. So it is P and it is Q. Right. So this is a regular octahedron. Now, why we are calling it regular octahedron? Because its base is a square. So that is why it is made up of a regular figure which is a square. So it is called regular octahedron. Octa means because of the 8 faces. Right. We have 8 faces, and that is why it is called octahedron. So it looks something like this. This must be a square base. Okay. Let us talk about finally that what are the things related to pyramids. So there are 2 important points regarding that. The first one is that all the sides, or you can say all the side faces of a pyramid, be it triangular, pentagonal, be it square, etc. Or you can do not write anything. All the side faces of pyramid are triangular. Right. So that is the biggest point, that if I recall that in every prism, the lateral faces of the prism were rectangle. Here the lateral faces would be triangle. So that is the biggest change, or you can say biggest difference between pyramids and prism, because lateral faces there are basically not triangular, they are rectangle, and here in pyramid all the side faces are actually triangle. Right. And we can write final point that a pyramid is named, as I told you I will teach you the classification. So it is a pyramid is named according, it is classified according to the shape. So you must have imagined that a pyramid is named according to the shape of its non-triangular face. Now what is non-triangular face? That is the base. Okay, so pyramid is named according to the shape of its non-triangular face because all the faces are triangular, right? All the faces are triangular and leaving base. So you can clearly see that if all the lateral faces are triangular, then what is the property which is making two pyramids different? Base. One can be square, one can be rectangle, one can be pentagon. Okay, so you can define the pyramids, different pyramids on the basis of shape of its non-triangular face, right? And if all the faces, the third point is, if all the faces, be it base also, is a triangle, then it is called triangular pyramid, or you can say tetrahedron, like we have seen octahedron. Okay, so I can write that if all the faces are triangular, if all the faces are triangular, then it is called a triangular pyramid. Then it is called a triangular pyramid or tetrahedron. Right, so you clearly see that all the side faces of a pyramid are triangular, all the side faces of a pyramid are triangular, or pyramid is named according to the shape of its non-triangular face, and if all the faces are triangular, then it is called a triangular pyramid or tetrahedron. That is, if you find a new base which is triangle, then the lateral sides are already triangle, so everything would be triangle, and we'll call it a regular we'll call it a tetrahedron. Okay, so this was all about pyramids. I hope you all understand my point. We talked about what is a regular pyramid, what is a right pyramid, what is an oblique pyramid. We have talked about the real types of pyramids like the pyramids of Giza, which are basically the square pyramids. We have talked about triangular pyramids. We have talked about pentagonal pyramids, regular octahedron. Okay, so this was all about this particular lecture in which we talked about different types of pyramids. We'll meet in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.